The American dream is currently undergoing a silent, calculated liquidation. We have been conditioned to believe in a specific timeline. You work for 40 years, you sacrifice your youth to a corporate machine, and in return, you are granted a dignified exit. We've seen the imagery 1,000 times. Silver-haired couples on sailboats, the warm glow of financial security, the promise that enough has been set aside. But as we cross into 2026, that promise has become a mathematical impossibility for the vast majority of the population. There is a number that has been weaponized by the financial industry, a number that is thrown around as the absolute baseline for survival in a modern economy: $500,000. They tell you it's the floor. They tell you it's the bare minimum required to keep your head above water as inflation erodes the value of every dollar you've ever earned. But if you step away from the glossy brochures and the predatory bank commercials, you find a reality that is haunting. We are living in a country where the average person is a statistical ghost. We are told that the average retirement savings is climbing, but that figure is a lie. A hollow metric designed to hide the fact that the middle class is being hollowed out. Today, we aren't just looking at bank balances. We are dissecting the anatomy of a systemic collapse. We are going to find out exactly how many Americans actually hold a $500,000 hand, and more importantly, we are going to look at the millions of people who are being forced to play a game where the house has already cleared the table. To understand the sheer scale of the deception, you have to understand how Wall Street uses math to hide the truth. When a financial analyst stands on a news set and tells you that the average 65-year-old has $600,000 saved, they are technically telling the truth, but they are practically lying. In a world of extreme wealth inequality, the mean or the average is a weapon of mass distraction. If you put one billionaire in a room with 99 people who have $0, the average person in that room is a 10 millionaire. But does that average buy a single loaf of bread for the 99 people with nothing? No, it serves only to mask the suffering of the majority. To find the truth of the American retiree, you have to look at the median. The median is the real world. It is the person standing exactly in the center of the country. And when you look at the median, the $600,000 dream evaporates. For households aged 65 to 74, the median retirement account balance isn't $500,000. It isn't even $300,000. It is hovering right around $200,000. Think about the psychological violence of that gap. There is a $400,000 canyon between the official story and the actual reality. We are being told the economic engine is purring, while the vast majority of the passengers are watching the wings fall off the plane. So let's look at the winners. Let's look at the elite group that actually hit the mark. According to the most recent data audited in 2026, only about 9 to 11% of American retiree households have managed to secure $500,000 or more in liquid retirement accounts. 1 out of 10. If you walk into a crowded stadium or a busy airport or a local town hall, the math dictates that 90% of the people you see will never reach the minimum goal set by the financial industry. The $500,000 club is an exclusive, shrinking island in a rising ocean of debt. The people who made it into this club are the survivors of an economic environment that no longer exists. They are the individuals who entered the workforce when a single income could buy a home, support a family, and still leave room for a 15% savings rate. They rode the wave of the greatest bull market in history, supported by employer contributions that actually had teeth. They didn't have to compete with the hyperinflation of the mid-2020s, and they weren't born into a system that demanded they take 6 figures of debt just to get an entry-level seat at the table. For the rest of the country, the other 90%, $500,000 isn't a milestone, it is a fairy tale. It is a number so disconnected from their daily reality that they have stopped checking their balances entirely. They have moved from a mindset of thriving to a mindset of surviving, and in the process, the very concept of retirement has been redefined. But the crisis goes deeper than just the numbers in a 401k. We are facing what economists are calling the liquidity trap. In 2026, Americans are technically richer than they've ever been on paper because the housing market has become a speculative monster. You will hear people say with a sense of false security that their net worth is over $500,000 because their house value has skyrocketed. But this is a dangerous illusion. Net worth and spendable cash are not the same thing. You cannot pay for a life-saving surgery by handing the doctor a handful of drywall from your living room. You cannot buy groceries with the equity in your garage. For the majority of American retirees, their entire life's work is trapped in the four walls of a house they still have to live in. They are house rich and cash dead. The historical theft of the American retirement began with a silent transition that most workers never even noticed. 40 years ago, the burden of your old age sat squarely on the shoulders of the corporation. If you gave 30 years of your life to a company, if you showed up, worked hard, and played by the rules, they gave you a pension, a defined benefit. It was a contract written in stone. You didn't have to worry about saving $500,000 because the company and the government guaranteed a paycheck that arrived in your mailbox every single month until the day you died. It was a system of collective security. But in the late 19th century, that system was systematically dismantled and replaced by the 401k. It was marketed as financial freedom and personal empowerment, giving you the choice to invest your own money. But in reality, it was a massive historic transfer of risk from the multi-billion-dollar corporation to the individual worker. We were told to become amateur hedge fund managers in our spare time while working 40 to 60 hours a week just to survive. And as we stand here in 2026, the data proves that this experiment has been a catastrophic failure for the masses. The 401k was never designed to be the sole pillar of retirement. It was meant to be a supplement, a third leg of the stool. But today, the stool has collapsed. For nearly 40% of American retirees, Social Security is no longer a safety net. It is the only net. We are asking a system designed in the middle of the Great Depression to carry the hyperinflationary weight of a modern digital economy. It's a bridge built for horse-drawn carriages that is now being crossed by 10-ton freight trains. The cables are snapping and the structure is screaming under the pressure. The average Social Security check in 2026 is roughly $2,000 a month. Now, do the math. If you were one of the 90% who didn't hit that $500,000 milestone, that check is all that stands between you and the street. But the crisis doesn't stop at the bank balance. We have to talk about the wealth eaters. These are the systemic costs that have outpaced inflation for 3 decades. The most predatory among them is healthcare. Even if you are one of the elite few who managed to save $500,000, the math is still stacked against you. Recent projections show that a healthy couple retiring today will need approximately $330,000 just to cover out-of-pocket medical expenses and insurance premiums throughout their retirement. That is 66% of your minimum nest egg before you even buy your first bag of groceries or pay your first utility bill. This is the hidden math that the headlines refuse to mention. $500,000 isn't a get-rich number. In the 2026 economy, it is rapidly becoming the break-even number. It is the amount you need just to tread water while the current tries to pull you under. And then there is the psychological toll of lifestyle inflation and the rent-seeking economy. We live in a world where you no longer own the things you buy. You subscribe to your software, you lease your car, you pay monthly for your security system, and you are taxed into oblivion on the property you supposedly own. The burn rate of a modern American life is higher than it has ever been in human history. When you combine high fixed costs with the death of the pension and the volatility of the stock market, you create a state of permanent financial anxiety. This is why so many people have simply checked out. They see the $500,000 target not as a goal, but as an insult. They see a system that demands a level of perfection that life rarely allows. One divorce, one failed business venture, or one chronic illness is all it takes to wipe out 20 years of disciplined saving. The numbers are cold, and they are indifferent to your struggle. They don't care about the overtime you worked or the vacations you skipped. They only care about the finality of the decimal point. We have created a society where aging has become a financial liability rather than a natural phase of life. We are seeing a silver tsunami of workers who are forced to stay in the labor pool well into their 70s, not because they want to stay active, but because the alternative is a level of poverty that this country hasn't seen since the 1930s. The help wanted signs in retail and fast food are increasingly being answered by grandmothers and grandfathers who are one missed paycheck away from losing everything. This is the hard truth of the 2026 retirement landscape.